Family and friends, welcome back. Today we talk about navigating politics and most importantly why it's at the least very important to know what's going on. It's a taboo subject among peacekeeping personalities, and understandably so. It's often the cause for disagreeing perspectives and ideals to the extent that entire countries, religions, and families divide over its polarizing issues. But why is that? Why do we seemingly agree to disagree in the name of civility? Well, since the beginning of time, the development of politics and a civilized society seemed crucial for the evolution of humanity. We have come from stone-throwing, axe-wielding, swashbuckling, and gun-toting dispute resolutions to what is now widely accepted as a democratic, civilized approach. Monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy are now the reigning forms of government, with that of democracy being most popular. Monarchy of kings and queens, aristocracy of social class and titles, and democracy of representatives and elected leaders. The term democracy first appeared in ancient Greek political and philosophical thought. In the city-state of Athens, this was during what was called classical antiquity. The word comes from demos, which means common people, and kratos, which means strength. Cleisthenes, who is known as the father of democracy, was the first to impose democratic reform. His most important innovation and why democracy has been the most popular by basing individual political responsibility on citizenship of a place, rather than on membership of a clan. The idea has since evolved into a simple system of government by the whole population, or all the eligible members of a state, which is typically through elected representatives. Today, very few countries are considered true democracies. Norway, Iceland, Sweden, and New Zealand tops the list, which happen to be as well some of the oldest around. They go back as far as the 9th century BC. But that is the past. It all began with great intentions and found its success in the simple logic that collectively a people can coexist through mutual agreements, an all-inclusive voting body. Today, with the exception of authoritarian rule, most countries and people strive for some form of democracy. With authoritarian rule being the direct opposite of democracy, we have since divided the concept to suit the times and varying societies. Here in the United States of America, we have what is called a federal democratic republic. That is, we have an indivisible union of 50 sovereign states. It is a democracy because people govern themselves. It is representative because people choose elected officials by free and secret ballot to represent them. Simply described as a presidential republic. Now, despite the form of government, all strive to please the people. They do this through loyalty and consistent refinement of living standards. What has always complicated the matter historically is power and greed, and the elusive pursuit of security. Then if you add the divisive effectiveness of wordplay, labels, and titles, you have what can be very confusing proposition for the uninformed. This is why in many cases democracy fails and wars prevail. There's simply no such thing as a perfect government. How can that be logically, given when we all hold individual priorities over that of our country? There was always room for improvement, however, and this is the dream of utopia, where for the most part, all is well. In our country, we employ a representative system and a body of fundamental principles called the Constitution of the United States of America to govern. This system is comprised of the presidency and Congress. Congress is comprised of the Senate and the House of Representatives, with governorships and legislation of each individual state overseeing the creation and implementation of laws for their respective states. With the exception of the 16 territories, for a national law or state law to pass, it must be approved by Congress to become law, with the president or governor signing off approval in whole or part or altogether, refusing the proposal, which is called vetoing the bill. This is where political science has emerged as a study of such processes, nationally and globally, as there exists some order to the world and its many borders. Internal and global politics now become the very important concern of what are called lobbying interests and their constituents, all of which are not governed or bound by any borders, as trade and the global economy is, whether we like it or not, an international affair. See, in today's world, the problem is compounded by the internet and specifically social media, which act as actual instant portals of information for every country and their governments. While we are taught about the physical boundaries that separate nations, we are not taught of all that makes us a global society. The result is open game on sabotage through propaganda and inaccurate information. We are meant to believe that we are so different and divided globally when religion, the internet, and trade actually governs and unite the world. We have been taught to despise a one-world order when we have already been living toward that very reality for a very long time. Logically, what is it to stop it? Also, why is it so feared? It is feared and cannot be stopped because human greed and insatiable hunger for power fuels this eventual reality. So given just a little thought, we must realize how empty politics is. The reality is, it is all relevant to the direction the global society is heading to. So why even bother with it, Coach AB? Why let it concern ourselves to the point where we wage wars over it, where hate is allowed to run amok and destroy basic human values, to where we lose sleep and let it affect our soul? The answer to that is simple, but not easy to accept. Because like everything else in the universe, a balance, an equilibrium is needed for existence. Positive and negative, good and evil, they don't exist without each other. So herein lies the wisdom needed to navigate politics, because instead of an end game, we each play a part in keeping that balance. We all must pick a side, knowing there is no winner, just equilibrium. This is a spiritual wisdom that comes from within, a soul's realization of the bigger picture. Although it can be taught, it is something only history and logic can explain, but for the soul to see. So here's the logic so that it is comprehensive. There are always two sides to everything, from a coin to a story. There's heads and tails, or a beginning and an end. The coin aims to add value to your life. Each side represents a symbol of those things we hold dear. It is the same with every story, every religion, every politician, every life. Even though the two sides exist disproportionately to each other, they are both part of the same. It represents a singularity, a common goal or destination. The best representation of truth in the universe, imperfectly so. Politics is no different. So in navigating, it isn't who that matters, it is the what. What can we resolve, correct, and accomplish to push us even closer to our utopia? We know it can never be perfect, but striving for perfection is what propels human existence forward. So in picking someone to represent our goals and values, we look at what they've done and what they promised to do as a trusted elected official to align with those goals. What history do they bring to the table in regards to experience, knowledge, and wisdom to allow them the best chance to succeed at those goals? Who would be best suited in making the most efficient and logical decisions when it comes to the benefit of all concerned in achieving those goals. It is hard to do when you know nothing about what's at stake, what issues need resolving, correcting, and what new perspectives can be accomplished. Not knowing leaves you uninformed and a likely victim of lobbyists and those motivated by greed. Lobbyists only represents their best interests, and in our democracy, unfortunately, has the biggest influence due to the manipulation of power and greed in the political system. It is up to us to see these guises for who and what they are. If not, we fall prey to divisive rhetoric that causes you not to vote or to vote for what's against your best interests. But I am only one. How can my vote count, Coach JB? Is it worth the headache to research? The answer is yes. And yes, it is the only real-time choice you have to affect change. Why would you want to give that opportunity away? Do you not value your own life, let alone the life of others? Is there another way to instantly make decisions that affect the way your life is going? Everything else is just talk. The action comes from voting, and then holding those we vote into power accountable for getting the job done. Well, Coach AB, I don't like talking about politics because it makes me feel uncomfortable around families and friends who have different views. Okay, then don't talk about it. However, that doesn't mean you should be misinformed or know nothing at all. That is called being ignorant to your own existence, your own self-worth. Yes, 7 billion of us on this planet. How can my one choice make a difference? It is the participation, the contribution to the process of equilibrium. It is the quintessential human purpose, an acknowledgement of existence, the right of the living. To put it into perspective, if we were to be attacked by an alien species set out to annihilate the human race, would you fight? Or would you sit on the side and say it's not your problem? Do you think the alien would see you any less of a human? So, to me, my humble opinion, not wanting to vote is like giving up on humanity and calling it quits for everything. So what if your candidate didn't get nominated? If the issues at hand are truly important to you, you will find some value in the next candidate that you can support. You don't have to be vocal about it. You can be very private in your decision making, but it needs to be your thinking, your choices, not someone else's because you are afraid of the conversation or lazy to think for yourself. Do your own research. Identify what makes sense versus what is just lobbyist perspective. Identify struggle and strife versus greed and corruption. Differentiate divisive rhetoric from unification, humanity from inhumanity, love from hate. Family and friends, this will always be a topic of opinions, and I'm not here to convince you to see one way or the other. But I must suggest, as an ambassador of good, that evil is not taking a break when it comes to politics, and we shouldn't either. Because balance has been blown to tip for very long periods of time. It's been known to tip for a very long time. So how does one stay informed? Through personal research. Information gathered is always more valuable than information given because you are now seeking truth as opposed to receiving someone else's version of it. Consider your source, whether it's a book, a news channel, or social media. Who is divulging the information and why? Answer that, and you then have a valued perspective that you can decipher the truth from. Avoid religious groups that push politics, as they are using your faith to sway your thoughts. Get to know the laws surrounding the issues that you find important, and understand how they are being used to promote or destroy progress. Avoid associating with lobbying interests. At the end of the day, it is all about the bottom line for them, even if their cause seems to be, promise of good. Last but not least, you might not want to make it personal, but it will. It should, however, not affect your life and the lives of those you love to the extent of damaging otherwise great relationships or consuming the energy of your soul. The debate can get heated as long as love, respect, and productivity prevails. Those that know me know I am very vocal when it comes to politics, but I will always put God and being human first ahead of how I feel in regards to politics. Nevertheless, the importance of it cannot be underscored, as it is the one aspect of life, if left unchecked, that can perplex the mind and consume the soul. I'll leave you with this quote to consider by former President John Adams. He says, "Government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people, and not for the profit, honor, or private interest of any one man, family, or class of men." With that said, stay tuned for my next episode on social sciences, the purpose of economics. Until then, as always, family and friends, may you have a meaningful and purposeful week. God bless.